What if the girl I am dating has male friends? Okay, this one is going to be for the guys, for my male audience. Okay, I just love this stuff. I love offering the insight to these kinds of questions that require a little bit peeling back of layers in order to find out deeper reasons as to why this stuff may or may not be acceptable. And I think the conversations need to be had, and the insight needs to be offered. So I love this question, and whoever asked me this, thank you for asking a really great question and bringing up this topic. Now, I have a whole video here on YouTube of why men and women are not friends, and why excuse me, we have been so programmed and brainwashed to believe that men and women can be just friends, right? And you can go ahead and check that video out. But to start this, I will say that you cannot impose on anybody else's free will, right? If a girl that you've been dating and you've been interested in, she has male friends and she has other male prospects, you can't impose on her free will and demand her to give up those male friends if she wants to be with you, right? God himself does not impose on our free will. Anytime we try to impose on someone's free will and demand things of them, there is always going to be a resistance to that coming from the other person. We're always going to resist and push back on somebody trying to strip our free will away from us, because not even God does that. And as a male, you probably know and understand very well that men have ulterior motives when it comes to approaching women. You know, most men are not just seeking out women to be friends with unless they are homosexual men, right? A straight male has an ulterior motive if he is seeking out women, okay, and casually befriending women, okay? There's always ulterior motives underneath that, and you probably understand that. And as a male who is also a protector and provider, you probably want to protect what is your prize, okay? Men actually have a larger area in their brain for recognizing competition by other males and defending their turf from other males. So as a protector, you are only doing your job of trying to protect her from other men, right? And potentially coming in to steal what is yours. Now, I'm a full believer in setting the commitment container. And that's really the only way that you'll ever be able to have a woman fully feel safe and fully surrendered to your leadership, is by setting that commitment container. Now, what I teach on here is always that you are single until you are married, okay? But I understand that the Western world has very different principles, and they don't usually adhere to those standards. And so they believe that you need to test out people and then take a few years to decide if you want to get married. I don't adhere to that standard, but I understand that that is the most common Western principle that we practice. So with that being said, just understand that you really don't have any obligations to anyone, any real, true, like spiritual and emotional and physical obligations to anyone without the covenant of a marriage, right? The government and God and, all the people in your community, you cannot be legally recognized without being like husband and wife, without being legally married. The government is not going to recognize your girlfriend that, you've claimed to be dating for a couple years. If something happens, if medical decisions are involved in either of your life, hopefully that never happens, but in situations where that might have to be discussed or might have to be proposed, then that's where you find yourself in a pickle, because legally you don't have the rights to your partner. It doesn't matter if you've been sleeping next to them in the same bed for the last 3 years. Legally you don't have any rights over that person. Okay, so I just don't believe in that whole mess of girlfriend boyfriend. We've really never we've only kind of introduced that whole thing after women's liberation, after the whole sexual revolution. That's when boyfriend girlfriend thing kind of took off. But I just don't believe in that, especially after you reach a certain age. Once when you're like in high school and junior high and stuff like that, that's perfectly fine, because you're not, your mindset is not really even looking towards marriage. But after a certain age, it just becomes like, I don't know. I don't roll with it. But anyways, so I say that to say is that before you're married, you really don't have obligations to anyone, right? And we're all allowed to have our own desires and our own standards of what we will tolerate and accept and what we will not. Okay, so if her standard is that she doesn't want to give up the other options of male prospects, who maybe some of them are pursuing her intentionally, maybe some of them have been friend zoned and just kind of waiting for their turn, if her standard is that she doesn't want to give up those male friends and male figures before she is in the covenant of a marriage, then that is her standard for herself, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's other guys out there who can see it the same way and also believe the exact same thing, okay? But if your standard for yourself, because maybe you haven't reached that vibrational energy yet, maybe you can't match that energy quite yet. So if the standard that you have for yourself is that you want a lady who doesn't date other men or doesn't have any other men in her life pursuing her or being her friend before you decide to propose or even just set a commitment container, whatever that may mean, then that is your standard that you currently have, and that's okay. That's okay, because we all have to keep up leveling and grow ourselves to be able to match a certain standard or match a certain energy, okay? So I was listening to a couple other people, their take and advice on this, and I heard of a girl who was asking for somebody's advice because she says that her guy doesn't like her to have male friends, but she just claims that it's okay because she's just a social butterfly, and that she trusts him and he should trust her, and they're just work colleagues, and there's nothing going on between them, and yada yada yada, and she just wants to be outgoing and make friends, right? And I get, like, women are more of the social butterfly, like more communicative kind of, we're more of the communicative energy, because our survival used to depend on maintaining close social bonds, right? So maintaining relationships for us is very contingent upon our survival, right? So this is all like deep programming, like generations and generations of programming within us to keep relationships close. That way we always have resources, we always have things to fall back on, people to fall back on, resources out there for us if we are ever in need and need to survive. So I can justify her reasoning from that standpoint. But then there comes a time where it's like, okay, do I love and care for my partner more, and their triggers and what is upsetting them, more than I care about keeping these close male friends that he probably instinctually detects that they are after his prize and trying to compete and steal what he has claimed and what he has won. Does that make sense? So what do you do if your woman that you're dating has male friends? Is that you stop focusing on all the other people outside of this relationship, outside of the two of you, and you put the energy and focus back in on the two of you, one man and one woman, and you set the boundaries within yourself, for yourself, and then show up embodying in that energy of someone who has established boundaries. And all of those things that she might be seeking out outside of your partnership, whether it be emotional needs, maybe she feels like she's not getting met emotionally, whether it be something that is lacking in your relationship mentally, maybe she feels like she's not being able to have like stimulating or interesting conversations. If she's feeling like any of these needs are lacking, then she's going to go outside of that and cling on to these other male friendships and male colleagues and business partners and things like that. So you can even just be more straightforward and go straight to the source and ask her what it is that she feels, emphasis on the feels, like she needs from you in order to feel more safe, and doesn't feel like she has to step outside and get those wants, desires, and needs met with other males. Or ask her what is her standard of that in order to what is her standard for parting ways with those other guys. Because I think a lot of people, both men and women, but even women now, who intuitively usually have more self-awareness, they don't even know that, or they're just deciding to be naive and play as if their female power is not potent and magnetic and very attractive to men. And they sometimes tend to pretend like those close males in their life are just friends and they don't have any other ulterior motives. So just go ahead and ask what it is that she feels like she needs from you in order to feel more confident about your relationship and not seeking out that other male validation elsewhere. And that requires putting the focus back in on you and her. Okay? And then you get to make that decision of whether you want to reach that standard or you don't. Because if you're just dating, again, like I said, you're not legally and spiritually and physically and emotionally obligated to one another. Our sort of just monkey primitive instinct and reaction to things when things hurt us is to protect ourselves and demand change of the other person, so that way we feel more safe and calm and peace about the situation. But again, there will be resistance with that. And this goes back to all the communication skills that I, touch on and talk about on here. But our initial instinct is just, our primitive instinct is just to demand someone else to do something that we feel should be done in order to protect ourselves. But this simply just, it doesn't work. So determine what it is that you both want and that what you're both expecting out of coming together, right? Because you're coming together for a reason. You're joining your lives together and sharing love for a reason. So what is that reason? Figure out what it is that you both expect for yourself and of the other person, and then be able to harmoniously communicate that with one another without demands, without complaints, without nagging or entitlement or expectations, but just harmoniously communicating that in love. And whatever commitment container that you decide what works for both of you, I don't believe in it if it's not, you're married to each other, right? Because I could go on a whole tangent about that, but basically, if you're not dating for marriage, you're dating for heartbreak. Anyways, if you're, whatever commitment container that you decide works for both of you, then you need to work within the means of that and not go robbing your partner of that intimacy by stepping out and sharing emotional bonds and creating attachments and sharing interests and dreams to the opposite sex that can open the door to destructive things to come in between the two of you, okay? Because that's a gateway to allow things outside of the partnership between the two of you to come in and destruct that. Think of it like this, okay? The standard here in the Western world is very, very low. Okay, there's hardly any standard at all. The men, they don't even have to work. They don't even have to have a job in order to score a woman. They have no requirements in order to gain access to a woman's body and her womb space. Okay? We are so corporate focused here in the Western world that we've lost all the communicative aspect of who we are as human beings. We've completely stripped the identity of our relational side as human beings and put that aside to build businesses and separate ourselves from family. So we don't know what to do when we are approached with these problems and situations that arise in our relationships, because we were never taught. They never taught us this in school. We don't know how to solve these relational problems because we have no good role model of this. And we're being fed so much from the media and from our music and TV, movies and Hollywood that we consume. And so we're confused on, the whole topic of male and female, how to communicate, and why being friends is not a good idea. Okay, I say all that to say, say the Middle Eastern world. Okay, let's say my sister is Muslim, so it is a given, like it is known. Okay, it is how they are raised. They're instilled with these principles and values from the time they are born, that the women are not to be left alone with men. A man and a woman are not allowed to be left alone in a room, and that a boy is not allowed to text and call a daughter and be alone with her until he gets the father's approval, right? It's up to the father. My sister is Arabic, and her father is very, very strict about her and having boyfriends and stuff. It's actually pretty complex because her father is very strict on those principles and his Muslim religion, but then her mother is she's Mexican, and she obviously has, like, she doesn't adhere to a lot of those same values. She has a lot of the, like, Western world principles, and I'm not, honestly, both of them to me are extremes. I'm not saying I agree with everything that the Muslim religion, instills, but I do see the deeper meaning of it, and because they understand the male brain and body, and how men are wired to be sexually pursuing women, and their sex drive is very potent and powerful towards female energy. I mean, they very well understand this, and that's why they don't let their young girls and young daughters just be anywhere alone with guys, right? Guys that are not their husband. It's very complex because, she has her father on one side instilling these values and being very strict with her, but then she has her mother on the other side, teaching her a whole different set of values, and she's really young right now, so she doesn't fully understand the whole 360 of it. But if I were to talk to her, I would say to her to actually take both and pull things from both sides and both value systems and create your own, to where you're not, to where she's like the pendulum is not swinging too far on either side, and that she can find that middle ground and come back into balance with it. Does that make sense? Because some of the things in the Muslim religion are very, very extreme, and then a lot of the things in the Western world, principles of dating, are also very, very extreme. But of course, if they've seen no other way and seen that there are other methods of dating and relating, then they won't be able to see that their side is extreme. Does that make sense? Right? Because a Western woman who was born and raised in America and growing up witnessing promiscuity all around her high school is going to think that the Muslim culture and religion and the way that they do things are very, very extreme. But on the flip side, the Muslim religion thinks that we are very, very extreme because we have absolutely no morals. So that's why I would personally advise to her, as an older like sister, to just take the principles from both, and the freedom that is really, really encouraged here in the West, and then the more strict cultural values that are strictly enforced in her culture, to find that middle ground and see what works the best. Because there's truths in everything. There's truths on either side. Okay. So what do you do if your lady has male friends? Well, first you take the focus off of those other male friends and bring the relationship focus back onto the two of you, and what's not being met, what's expected out of each other, what's the standard for one another, and where you want to take this. And then 2, have compassion for each other's side and views on things, and understand how a woman is heavily conditioned to believe that males are out to be her friend, because we go to school together, we grow up together, we integrate so much of our lives with the opposite sex from a very, very young age, and so we're conditioned to believe that this is all casual, okay? But when it starts to become too intimate with an opposite sex friend, then you, as a male, just simply being a protector and provider, rightfully want to protect and provide what is yours, and protect her against other men and enemies, okay? Females do appreciate that. And I would also suggest that any male friends of hers needs to be friends of yours. If you are in a committed partnership, even worse, husband and wife especially, any friends of the opposite sex needs to be friends with both husband and wife, right? Because you are one flesh when you make that covenant. Because if either of you ever find yourself having to hide friends of the opposite sex away from your partner, then that is an intuitive signal to yourself that is an open door to possibly something being destructive. Okay, so that's all I'm gonna say for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and got something from it. And yeah, leave a comment and subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Mwah.